Hello everyone, welcome back to Crafts by the Bow. Today I'm going to show you the calendars that I've been making this week, and I've made another one on my Facebook Live with a slightly different layout, and it isn't like a foldy card like this. My other one is an easel card, but this is the card base that I used for my Chinese New Year calendars. And I didn't want to show it earlier just because I knew the recipient hadn't received it yet. So this is the one that I'm making, and this is the one I'm making today. It uses a couple of different sets. This is the Petal Park Stamp and Punch. This is a die cut from framed florets. And this is the 3D cane weave embossing folder. So I used these calendars this year. I don't normally buy these ones. I normally buy Tailored Expressions, and they're a little bit smaller. But I was too late for Tailored Expressions this year, so I bought these ones. They're a little bit longer than the Tailored Expressions one, so I had to just change things around slightly. But if you have a different size, then I'll show you how I made the little piece that went behind, how I measured it and everything. Okay, so first of all, you need your base, and your base needs to be 5.5 by 8.5, which is just half a sheet of cardstock. It's really quite economical. And I'm going to get my scoreboard. Here we are. I don't always use my scoreboard. Sometimes I will use my paper trimmer, but if I have to extend the arm on the paper trimmer, often I just reach for the scoreboard instead. So I'm lining up the long side over here, okay, and we are going to score. I tend to use the larger ball on the stylus, just because I find if I use this one and I'm scoring paper, sometimes I'm a bit heavy-handed and I cut right through. So I'm using the larger ball, and I'm going to score at 3 inches, 6 inches, 7 inches, and let me just move this one out of the way, 8 inches. I just wanted to check that that one was on at 8 inches. I have these little markers for when I'm making certain projects, and you can just take them out and move them along. I only have 2 left though, so I really would like some more, but I don't think you can buy those anymore. Okay, so our scoring was 3, 6, 7 and 8, and that's all the scoring we need. So let's put that right out of the way. And when we come to fold this, we're going to make it so that this little narrow strip is the one that you put your glue on, and this makes the little fold underneath. So it's almost like a tent or an A-frame. So sometimes I bend this the wrong way, but I always start off with such good intentions. Okay, so this is going to be the larger part. Let me pop it like this so you can see. And then when you get to this next score at the right hand side, that's going to bend under. Doesn't matter if you do it wrong, you can always change it again later. So you've now got sort of an N or a box shape. Then this piece is going to bend out, and this piece is going to bend back. Okay, and then I'm just going to check to see if I did it right. So at the bottom you get like a W shape, and that would be perfect. Okay, right, so now I'm going to just go over that with my bone folder. I don't do the burnishing until I know I've got the pieces in the right, orientation. This will fit in just a normal size envelope. You don't need anything special for it. It comes out slightly narrower than a normal card, but the same sort of width. Okay. So I know that that's going to go together like that, and that will be the back. The side where I put the glue is the back. So I'm going to turn it over. This will become the front, and I'm going to decorate before I glue it together. So this is the piece that I'm decorating on. Now, I need a piece of designer series paper, and that needs to be 5 1/4 by 2 3/4. But instead of paper for this one, I'm using a piece of the exact same coloured cardstock, and I ran it through one of the new embossing folders, which is the Cane Weave 3D embossing folder. On the one side, you can see it's Cane Weave, but on the back, I quite like this image too, this sort of pattern. It's just a little bit different. But I'm using the Cane Weave because I think that goes with the Chinese New Year theme that I have. And it's going to go exactly in the middle on that. You've got a little border all the way around. And because it's a 3D one, what I like to do is put a little bit of tear and tape and a little bit of liquid glue. And I find that if I do both, the liquid glue will sort of soak in and move between the embossing pieces, and I don't always get glue on everything then. So if I use just a little bit of tear and tape as well, I know I've got somewhere that it's going to glue and attach. And I also put a little bit of the liquid glue when it comes out. I put a little bit over that tear and tape. Now that might seem like overkill and thinking, why on earth do you need 2 lots of glue? And that's because when I turn it over, oh, that doesn't fit into that lid. When I turn it over, if I've just got liquid glue, it means I can move things around easily. If I've only got tear and tape, I can't. So I tend to put a little bit on the tear and tape, and that means that I can still move this around. See how it still moves? Whereas if it's just tear and tape and you try to move it, you might find that you tear the card underneath. So that's a little tip that I learned when I was making lots of scrapbooks and albums, and embossed pieces with a heavy embossing. You know, sometimes it can be difficult to get them to stick down. Another thing I usually do is turn it over and go over the back with my bone folder. I don't want to do it on the front piece because that might squash the pattern down. But if you just go over the back, you know, then you've got a pretty good adhering on it, happening on it. Okay, so now I can glue my pieces together, and you can attach this with tear and tape, you can do it with liquid glue. I'm going to put tear and tape on mine just because it's quicker. Let's take that backing off. Okay, and this piece is going to attach to this piece that's the back, and I find it easier just to fold it over like this so you can see the very edge, and then line that up slowly. I'm just going to hold it there and then line up this bottom piece. It's a bit easier if you're using liquid glue because you can slide it along. And then I fold the whole thing flat and just go over. And I know that if I've got this flat, then it's going to be nice and straight, and it will stand up just really easily. And then when it goes into the envelope, you can either put it like this or you can have it folded in. If you're mailing it, I would probably have that piece out just because you don't want extra bulk for mailing. Okay, so that's that little piece done. We'll put that to the back. And let's get rid of these little pieces. We don't need those. And I'm going to make the flowers that go onto the front and the little die cut here. Now, the die cut was made with the framed florets dies, and I just used this one little leaf. Actually, I need to poke those little pieces of gold out. There we go. I don't want those left in. Okay, so that's the little one that I used. If you have a punch that's like a little leaf or a sprig, you could certainly use that. And I used our gold foil sheets. I love the sheets, but what I also love in this is the backing, because in the bag, to stop them being bent, comes this really nice thick chipboard, and I always save that. I make my albums with it, and it's a really nice strong card base for that. Okay, so let's find the little piece that I've cut out. Here it is, and I'm going to just stamp my flowers, and I've got a piece of scrap. It's too big, I don't need all of that, but I've got my real red, and I've got the flowers from the Petal Park. So I've already put on a stamping block this set of 3. They are all joined together. So let me make that straight, there we go. And this set of 3, which are the ones that colour in. If you wanted to use a watercolour crayon or a marker or a blend pen, you could colour in, you know, without doing this piece. So whatever you want. I'm going to do the base on the outline of the flower full strength. So I'm just going to pop this onto here. There we go. Now, I don't have much cushion in here, so let me see where I've put my foam mat. Here we go. Because photopolymer doesn't have any cushioning on it, it's always better to have something underneath. Sometimes I'll stamp on top of my catalogue because that's got a little bit of cushioning, or a magazine, but I've only got a couple of layers of paper on here. Okay, now these are the ones that colour it in. Again, I'm just going to ink it up, but I don't want it full strength. So I'm just going to stamp off, and then I'm going to stamp over here. It's a little bit difficult when I'm videoing because I can't always see exactly on top of the flowers, but I hope that's just about, yep, that's good enough. And we don't need the ink anymore, so let's get rid of that. I'm going to punch these out with the matching punch. I don't need these anymore. I'm not stamping any sentiments or anything on this one, so there's no more stamping to do. It's really quick and easy today. Now when I'm lining these up, I tend to squeeze the punch together a little bit so that it holds the paper but doesn't cut. And that way, if it's holding the paper a little bit like this, then I can slightly turn it. Just makes it easier. Oh, that jumped everywhere. Okay, I don't know where they all went. Here's 1, 2, where did the other one go? They sort of flew off my desk and I'm not sure where. No, I can't see it, so I'm going to stamp some more. You can probably see that 3rd flower. You probably saw where it went, but I can't, and I need all 3, so I'm going to, oh, there it is, look underneath. I was just going to stamp a new set. It was hiding underneath. Okay, now before I attach those, I'm going to attach my little calendar. And as I said earlier, these are a bit longer than I usually use. So all I do is I measure it, and I'm going to add only 1/8 of an inch. I don't want a big border. And you see, I haven't got the same width border here and here. I only want a little bit of the gold showing. So I've already cut this and just added that 1/8 of an inch all the way around. And these have got a nice little card base, so I know that I can use a liquid glue, but it takes a little bit of time to set on the shiny paper. So just for the video, I'm going to add it with tear and tape instead. It will just be slippery for a few seconds, and I don't want it to sort of move. Oh, I don't want that to peel off either. I only want the backing. So let's press that right down. That's better. There we go. And then I'm going to pop it on here. Tiny little border all the way around. I'm going to hold it at the left hand side before I fully push it down. just to make sure that I've got enough at this right hand side, and actually I've got a little bit too much. So I'm just going to move that along slightly. There we go. And again, I'm going to use it upside down and just make sure it's fully adhered. Now, to make the decoration on here, I want this little sprig to go here, and I still want to have space for my calendar. I'm not worried if this is going to overlap onto here, but I don't want it to overlap onto the white part, because every time you take a page off, there's a risk that this would tear. So I know that I'm going to add this first. And again, we've got tear and tape in front of us, so let's pop it on with tear and tape. And because it's going onto that embossed piece, you could do it exactly the same way as I added the embossed piece of card and use liquid glue and tear and tape. And you probably saw that I just went over that tape with a stamping block. I just wanted to push it right in because I'm not going to be able to go on the back and go over with my bone folder. So I wanted to make sure that was firmly attached. And I'm just going to add a little border, sort of the same 1/4 inch border that I have between the embossed piece and the card. I'm not making it so that it's right in the middle. I like this little gap at the top. I just need to move that along a tiny bit. There we are. And I'm using the pattern to line up my layer. There we go. You can push your fingers on the inside and try and make that gold foiled piece, you know, fully attached. Okay, now my little sprig, you see it's just going to go over that gold piece, but that's fine because it's not touching the paper. And I'm going to put a few little dots of glue on the back. You could put this on one of the double-sided adhesive papers and use it almost like a sticker, but I don't want all of it glued down. So I'm just gluing like these circles and where it's a little bit wider. But I'm not worried about having every little bit stuck down. And also, I don't want too much glue. It will always ooze out a little bit, but I don't want to have too much there. I'm just going to tap it down. I'm not going to squash it, because otherwise the glue from the back will start to leak out, like here where I was holding it with my thumb. And if you get that, just go over with your nail or tweezers or the edge of your pokey tool just to take it off. It will dry clear. If you find that it dries sticky, let's move that. You've probably seen I have one of these little tiny glue erasers, and I'll just go over, especially if it's on like a shiny card like this. I'll just go over with my glue eraser and take a bit off. Okay. Right. Now my first flower, I'm going to adhere flat. My other two are going to have dimensional on, but this, I'm just going to glue it down flat. So you can use glue dots or a liquid glue, whatever your normal preference is. And I'm going to stick it up right in the middle there. And then these two smaller pieces, I'm just going to put a dimensional on the back. And they're just the right size that these larger dimensionals will fit. Let's take these backings off. And then I'm not too worried about how these attach or how much they overlap or anything. I'm going to pop that there, and then the little one off to the side as well. I just don't want them to be on that white paper, but I don't mind it being over the gold a little bit. There we go. I think that looks quite pretty. And then to finish it off, I'm using the adhesive backed milky dots, which go with this Petal Park suite. I'm just going to use the gold ones. And I've only used red and gold throughout the card because it's for Chinese New Year. So on the larger flower, I'm going to use the larger dot. And I'll use the smaller ones on the other two. Let's pop these in here. Oops. There we are. And that's it finished. It's a really quick and easy little project and such a fun one to have on your desk. So there's my two little cards, exactly the same. Thank you so much for watching me. If you check my blog, all the measurements and supplies are on there, and I will put a link in this YouTube video to the actual page on the blog. So thank you again everybody for watching me. I'll see you all again really soon. Take care. Bye bye.